Welcome back to Inspired or Acquired. This is the podcast where we talk to real owners, give them a valuation, and ask them whether or not they would sell their business. So today we've got a different style of podcast. There's just the two of us today, Clint and I holding it down. So to kick off the new year, we figured it'd be a good behind the scenes and Q&A format to do today. So we're going to talk about what's going on in our businesses. We're going to talk about what we've learned so far doing 30 plus podcast episodes. A little bit of a celebration now that we've passed over 10,000 downloads, and also answer some questions that were submitted by our listeners. So, Clint, Happy New Year, man. It's good to see you.
Happy New Year.
We're here. We're recording here in early January, but it's a fun time of year to do this and reflect a little bit and think about the podcast and also think about business, where we're going.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to be here with you. I think it's been a really fun first year together. You're the reason we're here. I've always kind of wanted to do a podcast, but it's one of those maybe next year things, but you made it happen in 2024 by offering to co-host and kind of make it happen. And just glad and grateful for you, man. Kind of pushing me out into the deep waters here and forcing us to get going on this thing.
Yeah.
And we're 30 plus episodes in, over 10,000 downloads in, and I've got some pretty good feedback on it. And we haven't taken a time to just talk, me and you. We've always kind of been focused on our guests. And I think it's a great time at the end of the year to kind of reflect on what went right, what went wrong, and answer some questions. We've been getting some good feedback from our social media audiences on just stuff people wanted to ask us, so we can get to some of that today and just jump into some reflection and interesting stuff that we learned.
All right, let's do it. So let's start with you. For people that don't know your background, tell us a little bit about, how did you end up becoming the M&A, mergers and acquisitions specialist that you are? Maybe what did you do previously?
I was kind of a classically trained sales guy. So I went through every sales career you could have, starting from teenage years working in retail to then, I think at 16 years old, I got a telemarketing job one summer. So I did telemarketing. And then I sold Cutco knives. And then I did network marketing in college a little bit, did well in that. And then I sold insurance after college. And I just did all these different kind of sales jobs. But through my sales experience, I started reading sales books, which led me to reading business books, which led me to kind of wanting a business and wanting to become an entrepreneur. And it's really where I grew up anyways. I came from a small business background, but just went into the professional sales world and was a commercial aviation insurance broker because I have a background in aviation, and aerospace and sales, and it kind of made sense. But I guess after a few years of maxing out the comp plan at a big insurance company and realizing how much money I'm making the owners of this thing, I think something snapped in me, and I was like, you know what, I want to make this kind of money for myself, and I want to be an owner, but I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know anything about running a business yet, but I ended up hooking up with some partners and starting a manufacturing company, and that was called Nature Blinds. We sold hunting blinds that look like giant fake trees. That was my first entrepreneurial leap.
That's awesome.
It was pure startup with patented product, and it was about as hard of a startup as you can do. Those couple of years is where I lost all my hair and learned.
Were you selling in retail, like big box retailers?
Yeah, we sold them across the country, wholesale and retail. So we did e-commerce. And I developed a dealer network in over 20 states, and we would sell whole semi-truck loads to, places like Scheels and some big box stores, but a lot of the mom and pop hunting and outdoor outfitters would buy our hunting blinds and display them at their stores. And so I helped kind of do the sales job there. And then that company sold 2 years after we started it. So it sold a lot faster than I thought it would. I was a minority partner and the sale was kind of forced on me. And given a bag of money that wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be someday, but it was respectable. I was treated well. But yeah, essentially a private equity group got with our main financial partner, our angel investor group, and made us an offer he couldn't refuse, and then told us we got to take this deal. And so next thing I knew, I was pushed out of my own company with a little bag of money and didn't want to go back to insurance, didn't want to go back to a sales job, but I had a little capital. And so I just decided I was going to buy a business or start another business that I could own, that no one could force me out of, and kind of could do my own thing. And that's when I started shopping for a franchise to buy, which led me to realizing you could buy established businesses. And that's what led me to like Biz Buy Sell and my first encounters with business brokers, and being very unimpressed with business brokers that I encountered and how difficult I was having it as a buyer.
Yep.
And all these kind of sequence of events just led me to trying to navigate a world I didn't understand, which was buying a business for the first time, and realizing how difficult that is. And eventually I threw up my hands and said, someone's got to do a better job of this. This is ridiculously hard. And yeah, this was all in kind of 2013, 2014, when I kind of snapped and said, somebody's got to do a better job. And that's when the light bulb came on of why not me? And so I've kind of made it my mission for the past 10 years to make it easier for people to buy and sell small companies, and to help people that were in my shoes when I was wandering the desert after my first forced exit, when I had a bag of cash, when I was looking for a good opportunity. I'm like, can I just create a systematic way to serve people good opportunities that, I would want to buy if I were them. And that's been kind of my ethos the whole way. And that's led me to where I am today. So I've been doing deals for 10 years and had a little, kind of regional Texas-based business brokerage. And this year we raised money, and that was kind of my big 2024 update. Was I took on partners for the first time since Nature Blind. So I'd been like 100% owner for a decade, and had kind of a bad experience my very first go around with, successfully raised money, successfully exited, but didn't like not having control of the company. And so this time, I was able to roll in an already successful brokerage into a new opportunity and maintain good control, but still bring on partners and investment and capital. And so that's what my 2025 is going to be, is kind of like, how can we scale this outside of Texas and create a system that makes it easier for everyone to buy and sell companies? And we're just kind of continuing that same mission I've been on for the past 10 years, but how can we scale it nationwide and kind of marry it to a high-tech vision? And that's what
so how's that different? Obviously you're taking a bigger swing, you're taking on investors. I don't know if now's the time to talk about it, but like, what does the vision look like for that? Or maybe how's that different from the traditional brokerage?
It's way different. Before 2024, my plan with Bison business was like I'd almost given up on making it a really big company. And I was mainly just going to have like a high quality small business that did quality deals, not quantity deals, and then allowed me to make a good living and then invest in the SMB space as well, alongside some of these great entrepreneurs coming through the platform, and just be content with that. Like, my wealth building strategy was, just basically run a really good company where I could make good money and then snowball it with investing and getting equity in SMBs and building a portfolio. Like that was my general strategy in life. But it wasn't really going to change the world. It wasn't really going to become a $1 billion company or anything like that. And then I had this fateful meeting in January of last year, so almost 12 months ago. A guy named Marshall Hatfield reached out to me, and he had this knack for lead generation of off-market sellers, and he knows how to do that at scale. He's done it by the thousands, and he wanted to partner with me to do a lead generation company that sold leads to business brokers and sold leads to business buyers.
Yeah.
And he wanted to bring me on because, like, I'm a well-known business broker. I know all the other business brokers, and I've got a large network of buyers and a large social following of buyers. And so it was like, hey man, like just keep doing what you're doing, Clint, but I'd love to just have your name and a face associated with my company that's going to be called Dealonomy, which is going to be this awesome lead gen company for off-market sellers. And we had this conversation that basically went, hey man, I love you. I love what you're doing. I love your vision, except you're leaving all the money on the table because you can only sell a lead for so much, but the people that really make the money are the people doing the deals.
Yeah.
And then I kind of married his vision with a vision that I had of like how I would do a high-tech, high-speed national brokerage if I had an unlimited amount of seller leads. Like, here's how I could sell thousands of businesses, you know, and I kind of had already built that in my head before. And we started talking, and I realized like he was the missing piece I needed, and he realized I was the missing piece he needed. And then it just kind of became this big thing where we just thought, you know, let's go all in on this. And so I'm just contributing basically my 10 years of knowledge and my network, my company, my team, and he's coming on as CMO, and I'm going to be CEO of Dealonomy. And we're building a high-tech deal facilitation platform that's just going to switch everything everybody knows about buying and selling companies and make it a lot easier, and has a really innovative monetization model. It's different. And so I don't want to talk the whole show about that. Like, there's some secret sauce I can't share yet, but around March or so is when we're going to launch, and we'll be able to publicly share about that. And hopefully Dealonomy will become the new sponsor of Inspired or Acquired at that point. But yeah, it's still me and my same mission, which is someone needs to make this easier because it's just too dang hard to navigate this space.
Right.
And that's really my heartbeat, and it lines up with what we're doing on this show, you know, because I think part of why we're getting some early success here is people don't get a lot of exposure to the real stuff in this world. Like, there's a lot of the gurus that sell like the concept and the idea of owning a business, but they don't really know how the rubber meets the road on this. And me and you, we're sitting here with established owners every week, and we're talking about their real numbers and their real mistakes and their real successes and how they think about selling their businesses. How did they actually buy their businesses? And that authenticity and the realness of it and the demystification of it, just taking people behind the curtain, is I think what people are craving now, and they're just looking for solutions. And so, I want to bring a major market solution with Dealonomy to just help make it 10 times easier to find a good business and get the deal done. And I know that's kind of what you're doing in accounting, right? Like, you want to create like the easy button.
Yes, the easy button.
Yeah,
you nailed it. That's awesome, man. That's synergistic, and just that's great to be able to find a partner like that. And I'm excited to see the platform launch this spring. And I definitely I think you're doing some very interesting things too. Just the way the market is right now, and you know the buy side demand that's out there, and how you can help address that. So that's great. Quickly, personal goals. Any personal goals you want to share this year? Anything you're focused on outside of biz in 2025?
Yeah, I posted. We could put it in the notes if we want. Like, I do this weird thing where I post my goals every year. So I have a method to the madness, but it trips people out because I post this huge list, but it's really like 2 big goals. And the other 38 things on the list are just kind of nice things I would like to see happen. They're intentions. And a lot of them are behaviors I need to do to achieve the big goals and things like that. But my 2 big goals for 2025, the first one is to get under 200 pounds on weight. And so that's about 40 pounds lighter than I am today. And that's a big one for me, that I think when I try to set goals, I think like, what's one goal that would make everything in your life better if you did that, you know, and that health journey that I've been on, like, I made some progress on that this year. I fell short of where I wanted to be, but I'm like, I'm not going to let it go. I'm just going to like keep working with a coach, keep working on my nutrition and health and getting things sorted out there, because that'll make everything better. So that's, you know, the big health goal for me. And then the second one is to build the Dealonomy deal pipeline to over 100 million active deals at one time. So by this time next year, we're looking at like, hopefully we'll have closed more than that, but we just want to have a pipeline that's at least that big of active stuff
Yeah.
where we're helping people sell. And, anytime you talk to me right now, I've typically got like, I don't know, 1/5 of that in my pipeline. It varies,
Okay.
because we bring new stuff on and close stuff. But, a typical pipeline for me is probably about like $20 million, sometimes up to 30 million. And so that would be a starting to get some traction with the new system.
Yeah.
Say, let's get a 4 or 5x jump from where I was with Bison to where we're going to be with Dealonomy our first year in business. So it's a pretty ambitious goal. So that's the two big ones. And then my long list of like other things I want to see happen is, you can go read it on my social media, but some of the fun ones are like, I want to go to Argentina and lead a group out there. That's a SMB owners and service providers group that this is the same concept we did Kilimanjaro with in 2023.
Yeah.
We want to do another adventure trip with cool people in this space in 2025. So we're starting to lay the groundwork for an Argentina trip.
Great fly fishing down there.
Yeah.
Is there a day of fly fishing on the agenda in Argentina? Or?
I was wanting to do dove hunting. It's like the best dove hunting on earth. And I also wanted to do glaciers in Patagonia. So if we had more time, fishing's like the number 3 thing, I think, on my agenda for Argentina. But to me, like the Patagonia sightseeing of the glaciers and mountains, and then the Cordoba dove hunt is kind of like always been a bucket list thing for me. So that's one. And then the other things are like family things, like I set goals every year for how many dates I want to go on with my wife, and weekend getaways with her, dates with my kids, quiet times for me. That's like spiritual quiet time in the morning where I read the Bible and just before I start my day, have that quiet moment. So I set goals on a lot of these activities, and things I want to do on social media and with our podcast and all kinds of different things. So you can go check that out on my socials, but that's my 2025 forward looking outlook right now. How about you, man?
Awesome. Where to start? Backstory of how I ended up where I am.
Yeah.
So prior to owning accounting firms, kind of similar story to yours, had a career in sales. So I was always an introvert, really enjoyed math, really enjoyed business school. And then I did door-to-door sales in college, which led me to a digital marketing startup that I worked at for 7 years. And that was Rev Local. So if you didn't listen to the episode, we did an episode with Mark Hawk, who was the CEO of that company, but spent 7 years there serving small businesses and really enjoyed that. And then I spent 3 years doing small business coaching and advising at Cultivate Advisors. And I really enjoyed that role, but it was kind of similar. I was helping clients make a lot of money. And as somebody that didn't grow up with any money, I wanted to be able to go make a lot of money. So started to hear about people that buy small businesses. And at the time when I was doing that coaching and advising, I was always referring out bookkeeping because all our clients would have terrible books. And it was like transformational when they would get good, solid financials. So long story short, I went and looked for an accounting firm to buy, and I ended up closing at the end of 2021. So I'm just passing over my 3-year anniversary of having bought Appletree, and then did a couple more tuck-ins since then. So it was kind of a wandering, meandering path similar to yours of like cutting my teeth in sales, having that entrepreneurial drive, not knowing what type of business I'd want to own, and then really finding one that seemed to match up with my interests and skill set. So that's kind of been my path so far.
Yeah.
To get to where we are. Yeah. And in terms of goals for this year, from the first, business plan that I had, the goal is to grow Appletree from 1.2 million in revenue to 5 million within 5 years. So like 5 million within 5 years has just been like my mantra that I talk to myself about. And so 2024, we did about 3.3 million. So we're on pace for that, 5 million within 5 years. So for me, that means like doing 4 million in revenue this year, continuing to strengthen our operations, continuing to improve our sales and marketing so that we can keep growing. And at a nitty-gritty level, I think for me that means like continuing to develop leaders in our team. So really getting the next layer of leadership and continuing to empower them to be able to run different departments that we have without me. So those are some of my business ones this year at Appletree. Personal goals this year. Last year, I think I hit the gym as much as I wanted to. There's a kettlebell place that I go to 3 days a week, and when I'm in town, I was pretty good about that. But I have this like recurring low back injury that will knock me out for a couple weeks. So I think my health goal this year is continue to get 3 days a week in there, but keep my mobility and flexibility going with maybe mixing in some stretching and yoga. And I'm pretty good at eating during the week, but on the weekends, man, I lose the discipline. And, a couple of drinks and too many servings, too much dessert is getting the best of me. So I definitely want to, rein in the weight a little bit this year as well. And control the weekend eating habits. Or the other place that gets me is conferences. I don't know if you feel that way. Like I go see people and like, it's fun to catch up with people, and then you're eating poorly, sleeping poorly, not working out. So trying to keep some discipline when I'm traveling for conferences is a big one for me. And I would say the other thing in the business that relates to all this is finding more time. There's a lot of days where I'll have like, on average, I'll have like 9 to 12 Zoom meetings in a day. Because I just have a ton of sales calls, I have internal meetings, I have interviews. So really trying to see if I can just free up some more time to think and, do content and find some space in the business, So I'd love to be able to like cut my meetings down in half. I think that would be huge for me. And then on a personal level related to that, two big vacations a year this year, I should say. I know my wife, she always loves having something to look forward to. And, we do a lot of like small mini trips, but I think 2 like bigger kind of week-long vacations this year would be really fun for us. And also just show me that it's fine and possible,
Yeah. You want to come to Argentina, bro?
Might.
All right.
I might.
Get you on board.
The other place I've been debating is Alaska. So, and we have some personal
One of our guests
goals.
was Alaska. We have a contact up there.
Okay.
Pushing dreams, right?
Yeah. We have some personal financial goals, and so if we hit some of those, there's a trip tied to it. So,
awesome.
So that's kind of where my head is at. But honestly, I can't see much further than like 2 or 3 years out with my business. So I probably need to do a better job of like thinking big, like you are, with Dealonomy these days. So So that's kind of our personal update. Let's talk about the podcast a little bit. So we passed over 10,000 downloads, over 30 shows. So I'd be curious for you, Clint, what are, top couple moments that we've had with guests or recording the show, like favorite moments so far?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about our favorite moments, and then just maybe some of takeaways of what have we learned, like what have we learned in terms of just the podcast itself or from our guests, for me, like I don't think we could have asked for a better initial group of guests. Like,
yes.
It's been a high caliber group. If you haven't listened to many of the shows, please go back and listen to them. Everyone's been really special to me, but I really enjoyed some of the like more obscure guests we had. Like Alan Pence came to mind in Washington, DC. And he's a guy that's just like, he's not on a bunch of podcasts. He's one of those entrepreneurs that I just kind of mysteriously bumped into through Twitter, through the magic of X.
Yep.
We ended up meeting in DC when I was out there this summer. We went to a Nationals game together. He came out and saw my family, and we hung out a little bit, and he agreed to come on the show. Shortly after that, But, he has a government contracting business, which is a kind of a mysterious world. And he was able to really share on our podcast, like how we got into it, how he grew it, and that there's kind of this plateau at about 5 million revenue that most GovCon people can't really break through.
Yeah.
And he was stuck there. And now I think he was at 35 million this year.
Yeah, he's killing it. And he's hit a couple different plateaus that he's been able to work his way through.
Yeah. So his show and just the insights on GovCon, and then just how he broke through those plateaus to be kind of a major player in that space. So it's going to be, more of like a $50-60 million company.
Yeah.
Before he exits was really, I think, a special one to me, as just hearing that story, because you can't get that story every day. That's a pretty cool one. And then another one I wanted to highlight was Austin Linney, just his emotional
Yes, it was nuts.
roller coaster of his Pennsylvania HVAC company acquisition that just went wrong every way it could possibly go wrong. But just his big heart and his willingness to just call audible after audible of like, okay, if that doesn't work, let's do it this way. I think if you haven't listened to that show, you have to, because it just shows you his mindset was like, no, we're going to figure this out. Come hell or high water. I'm all in. We're doing this. And he ended up getting it done in a very creative way.
I knew his deal was crazy, but I had no idea the extent to like just
it was super crazy.
The madness that transpired before it closed. Yeah.
What were some of your favorite moments, man?
I would say, Mike Botkin is somebody that I respect a lot, and he's done a lot in business. And before he came on the podcast, he was like, I listen to your guys' show and I listen to every episode, and there's not many other pods that I listen to every episode. So that was just cool to hear that from somebody like him in the operator seat. And then for him to give us a peek behind the curtain of like how quickly he grew his landscaping group and the exit. And I don't think he'd really opened up with anyone like that before. So that was a cool moment. I think another thing that, I don't know, I just feel like we're kind of on something clicked with the concept of the show here, where a couple of our accounting clients at Appletree were like, hey, I'm thinking of selling. What would that look like? What do you think this is worth? And then they were, open-minded and willing to come on the show. And I think it was just a really good natural extension of like, what does that conversation sound like? And what's the education, and where is their head at on like what they want to sell, So Cheryl Ham is one of those episodes, as well as Ian from Intech Scientific. It was an organic conversation that they brought up. And then I said, hey, would you be game to come on the podcast and talk about this? And I think it's just cool to see that this format has felt authentic. That's probably the word, is authentic. Yeah. Those are a couple. I mean, looking over our list of shows is like, we've had some awesome ones. I mean, Chris Edwards, buying, growing, selling his flooring business is just like, should be a case study in every search fund club, That one jumped out.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Or Mike Pedro with MD Aesthetics. He was exiting to PE, and he was willing to like open up on what that was like and his decision to do that, and what they learned growing their med spa group really quickly within a couple of years. That was another just sneaky, really good episode.
I think one of the things that most surprised me this year was just kind of how honest and open so many people were. When we were brainstorming this show, we were, I was saying, I don't want to just be another business podcast that just interviews people and says, hey, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your business. How can people get a hold of you? Like, I really did want to get into the heads of folks, which I think is hard to do if they're not willing to share their real stuff. And in fact, I was so committed to kind of really wanting to really value the companies on the spot that we had created a workflow for if people didn't want to use their real name, but they wanted to come on and get a valuation anonymously, like we could interview them with no face, with just a artificial company name, and talk to them anonymously and value their business. And out of over 30 episodes, no one's asked to do that. Everyone's been willing to kind of man up, they're woman up and coming on and tell us. And it's not easy because we've had some guests, like we had one or two that we told on the show, your company's really not worth anything, and that's a hard conversation to have, but just how brave they were to come on and really hear it one way or the other. And I think that was really cool for me, just seeing how open and vulnerable people were willing to get, and if you can do it in good faith. And I think that we're that's part of, I think, what's making what we do special is like we're not trying to sell them anything necessarily. We just want to like be a resource to them, and we want people that listen to be able to get the real insights from their experience. And so people have been very generous with sharing their experiences with us on the show in that format. So to me, that's the format and the openness of our guests has what's been really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's been a couple of people that just have said like, no, I'm not willing to dig into that, which I totally get. But for the people who have come on, I think we've done it in a way that also recognizes the hard work and recognizes you're really good at saying, okay, your tax bill is going to be X as soon as you sell, of just the reality that what that transaction could look like and how much hard work has gotten them to that point. And if they did really sell, like what else is going on at home, family wise, that would factor into that decision. So it's been fun to be part of those conversations. What else? Any other big surprises or takeaways from running a podcast or doing it?
I think two other quick ones that come to mind was like, one was doing a podcast. I think I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I am freely admit that. And I think part of the reason is like every one I've listened to, I'm like, it feels like it's almost frustrating because the hosts don't go there like asking the stuff I would ask if I was talking to that person. And so to me, the formula as a host is I just put myself in my own shoes. And if I was listening to this, like I try to keep pressing in, if people are letting us go as deep as we can into the more personal side of their lives and into the, just, I don't know how many people I asked why wouldn't you take $10 million right now? I mean, like for most people, you're set for life if you got that, and just letting people react honestly to that, like just hit them right in the face with like, dude, that's a wheelbarrow full of money that you could never have to work again. Why the heck would you turn that down? Why do you put yourself through doing another year of landscaping businesses, or whatever this sweaty business they have is. And you can tell a lot of these people have never really been directly asked that, with the real numbers in front of them. And so that's what I tried to do there. I had another one.
I think the couple things that jump out at me is, it's a good amount of work to like do this. It's like kind of a part-time job to schedule with everybody and edit and everything. But when I'm here and we're with guests, it's really fun. And then when I see the feedback and like the product that we put out, I definitely think it's worth it, so hopefully.
I remember. Yeah, you're right. Like the other thing that really jumped out to me is operational excellence trumps deal excellence.
Totally.
And I'm a deal guy, so I help people enter and exit, and so I've just been all obsessed with deal terms and prices and valuations and I enjoy doing that part of the show. But when I see all these successful people parading through our show and we get into their deals and we often value their business and then we hear, how did they buy the business? What did they pay when they bought it? Like most of them, I would say, built them most of their wealth through operational growth.
Absolutely.
Organic operational excellence.
Yeah.
And you're doing that with Appletree, like it was what, $1 million revenue when you bought it?
Yeah.
And you're hoping for $4 million next year?
Yeah.
And so like most of that's been organic growth, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're a shining example there, Patrick, and a lot of our guests are the same thing. It's like, and so I think as a broker, you get kind of myopic sometimes because that's your world is just the deal structure and the price and the terms. But at least successful entrepreneurs, like if there's anything people need to remember is like, yeah, when the deal's done, it's done. And at that point, it's on you. Like it's your excellence as an operator that's going to determine how successful you are in life. And it's been really inspiring for me to see how these people have, tripled, 10x, like Hayden's Flack, like where he took his dad's company to where it is today.
Yeah, I mean, you could go through so many examples. Like our first guest, Brian Beers, he'll buy a flailing Midas and struggling, and he'll have it kicking off $200K cash flow within a year. Or Baird buying all the, he calls them crappy storage deals and improving those, or Bach. And yeah, you could go down the list of people that did multiple acquisitions. Yeah, it's operational excellence that really drives the most value.
Yeah, it's a recurring theme for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So let's hit some of these listener questions. I'll go through some of these, and we'd be interested to hear your take. This first one made me chuckle a little bit, but this person said, would love to get more info on if it's as common to buy a business with an SBA loan with 5% down, 5% standby note as Twitter makes it seem.
It is not.
It is not.
And not in my experience. Like most of our deals are at least 10% down. And I'd say like a lot of them are putting in higher than the bare minimum as well. Like it's not uncommon for people to put in a 20% or more down payment into a deal. And so the 5% down, 5% standby note that kind of maximizes your leverage is possible. It's just not super common. And so I think those bleeding edge cases are fun clickbait for the Twitter sphere and stuff to talk about the extreme cash on cash returns you can get by maximum leverage and things. But I think when the rubber meets the road, like brokers, sellers, bankers, they like a solid buyer that's putting some substantial skin in the game. And it gives everyone a warm fuzzy if they're not just trying to do it by the skin of their teeth here.
Yep.
And so just because it's possible theoretically doesn't mean it's probable or the most likely scenario. And in today's environment, when we have a competitive bidding environment where we usually have multiple suitors every deal, like there's heavy bias towards all cash or at least more cash down payment. And I think if your hope is to really do the 5% down or especially the 0% down, like you're usually going to get beat by somebody bringing a little higher down payment. And so I usually recommend to think at least 10% down. And if you're going to try the 5% strategy, you better be really strong. Like you got to know your stuff in that industry. You got to have if you're going to have outside investors, you need to have them lined up. You need to have like all your ducks in a row and present like the strongest buyer out there to give yourself a chance. But if you're kind of a weak buyer and you're weak on the down payment, you're probably going to get passed over by a stronger candidate.
Yeah, I agree. There was a follow-up question from that person that said also how to increase loan approval odds when buying in an industry with no past experience. My answer would be like, this is all sales. You're selling yourself to the seller, you're selling yourself to the bank, you're selling yourself to the employees. And in some ways, I think you really have to make your case to the bank, and I always think it's a good idea to talk to multiple banks or maybe have a couple banks get to the commitment letter. Because I've seen it all the time where there'll be one deal that one SBA lender will do all day, and there will be another one that other SBA lenders won't touch, maybe because they've soured on a certain industry or they just look at the deal terms different. But that would be my advice is like, just know that it's a sales process. And so you want to have a strong business plan. You want to, make sure you're thorough, maybe have multiple lenders. And then I think the other thing is like the debt service coverage ratio is like the ultimate trump card. The bank is going to want to see that there's at least like 1.25 or 1.5 debt service coverage ratio to feel comfortable making that deal. I don't know if there's anything you would add to
Yeah, I would add industry experiences and everything. Like general business experience can sometimes trump industry experience. For example, like if someone was trying to buy an auto shop and there was two candidates, one was a technician at an auto shop. So they were like exact industry experience for 20 years, but they never ran a small business before. I would be a little more nervous about them as the buyer versus someone who had ran other small businesses. They just never had run an auto shop before.
Yep.
But they had experience managing people, hiring and firing, running a P&L, leading, growing, like all the aspects involved with a small business that you don't really get exposure to if you're an automotive tech for 20 years. And so I think that's how you position yourself to answer that question is you have to show I'm a leader. I've led people. I've been responsible for a P&L. I've ran a budget. Things like that really apply to business. And as long as you have a plan to account for the industry gap in your knowledge by the people and the training you're going to do before, during, and after the sale, that can fill in those gaps, like that can make you a strong candidate.
Yeah, good call. Next question. Have any guests from the podcast ended up selling their business?
Yeah, like one was really close when they were on the podcast, and I think they have sold, but we've had, I can't actually share the examples, but there's been two folks that are in talks to sell. One I'm hoping to help broker their deal here shortly that was on this show. So
all right, stay tuned. Next question. How long does it take Clint to get a client ready to sell, go to market, close, etc.?
It takes generally about 9 months start to finish from engaging with them to sell to closed. But we're hoping as Dealonomy launches and we standardize some of this stuff and make it a high-tech, high-speed process that we can shrink that to the 3 to 6 month range is kind of like the goal. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to get faster than that because if you have an SBA loan, they take 60 to 90 days to close anyways. Right. So you always have like 2 or 3 months baked in, even once you have a buyer matched and everything goes smoothly. Things rarely go smoothly. And so you have to have some allowance for, wrenches to be thrown into your plan and snags to hit. And then, it just kind of stacks up. If you think like 2 to 4 weeks to build a marketing packet to get yourself ready to go to market, there goes a month. And then, maybe a month or two, like on the market, talking to buyers early stage, sharing them the confidential information, having some meetings with them before you get offers in, and then a period of time where you're getting offers in and evaluating them and negotiating on them. And then once those offers, you've picked one and it gets accepted, then you've got a couple months to close it. So, I mean, even if everything goes perfect, 4 or 5 months is usually about as fast as you can go. But I tell people to be ready for a year journey. And if it happens sooner than that, that's good. But on average, it's about 9 months, start to finish to sell a business.
You got a hard job. Next question. I think this was, how do you think about growth in your regional market versus nationally? They said, I'm curious about the marketing channel pie chart because I had thrown up where our clients came from. I would say more often than not, we're based in New Hampshire, but we get clients all over the country now for our accounting services. And a large part of that is due to people buying businesses all over the country. So I do still market locally, but the channels are just totally different the way I go to market. But what about for you? When you think about Dealonomy moving forward, is it, Texas focused, nationwide? What are you thinking?
Nationwide for sure. To me, it all changed in 2020. 2020 is the year I did my first deal where I never met the seller in person. Up until that point, we only do brick and mortar kind of real businesses. We don't do a lot of like Amazon resellers or just pure digital plays. Like most of ours have online, offline components to them. And we always felt like meeting people, looking them in the eye, shaking their hands was a huge competitive advantage because and so I did a regional company in Texas, and I would fly my little airplane around if I needed to meet people, if it was a long drive or I'd drive or whatever. But I'd always at least go see them a couple times through the process. But in 2020, when work from home took off and everybody was sidelined from meeting face to face, and everybody got comfortable with Zoom calls and doing business, like I did my first multi-million-dollar transaction where I never met the buyer, I never met the seller, did everything via Zoom, and it went smooth. And it just kind of, the light bulb came on to me. I was like, well, this doesn't have to be just Texas,
right?
Because I could have done that with anyone from anywhere. And so to me, the future looks like really good high-tech systems and that personal touch, but with asynchronous and remote communications into your process, because people are ready for it. And they, as long as you're responsive and you present well, you can do that remote now almost as good as in person. And so if it makes sense to go in person, jump on a plane, do, like, I always do that, because there's really no substitute. As that's the best of the best, but
sure,
you can still get a lot done. And if you can get it done, 90% is good, but have, 100 times more prospects, like, you can do a lot more.
Yeah, I agree. Next question here. Do most owners overvalue or undervalue their business? What's the best thing they can do to increase the sale price?
I mean, that's one that would take a whole show, but the first part's easy. They overvalue.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen that too, Patrick. Like, I would say it's about, I do valuations all year long for 10 years. And I would say 95 to 98% are like thinking it's worth more than it is. But there's probably like 3 to 5% like that are pleasantly surprised with, oh, that's worth more than I thought, and so that's kind of the common thing. And that's just human nature. It's not anything to get mad about. Like, if you're trying to sell your car, you think it's worth more than it is. Right. If you're trying to sell your house, you think it's worth more than it is. Because we're optimistic folks. And yeah, like around your neighborhood, you see the house that's twice as big as yourself for $2 million. All of a sudden you start thinking, well, I want to get $2 million when I sell my house.
Right.
But like, it doesn't really work like that,
Yeah.
And so we have to burst bubbles more often than be pleasantly surprised. But we do have, it's like jumping into a pool of cold water on a hot summer day, on those moments when they say, wow, I didn't even know if I was. In fact, the one I did in 2020, that was a $3 million IT company. They called, and our first phone call, they said, Clint, I think we're probably wasting your time, because I don't think our company is even sellable.
Oh, wow.
I don't really think it's worth anything. And they told me what they were making, and my eyes popped out of my head, but they had a customer concentration problem where they had 95% of the revenue from one major Fortune 500 company that they were kind of bolted onto. And so they didn't think they were really sellable. But we ended up getting them, over $3 million for their business. And I was able to kind of predict that in our first phone call. And that was like such a fun conversation. It was like, no, like, that's a problem, but for every problem, there's a solution, and we can find a way to structure the deal where it's a win-win for everybody. And let's figure this out together. And we did, and we got it done. So that's always a wonderful experience when we're able to do that.
Awesome, man. All right. A couple more questions here. Curious, what do you consider low CapEx for a business? What he's referring to here is capital expenditure, and said, is that less than 5% of revenue? Is it a percent of net profit? Trying to figure out benchmarks across industries, landscaping, irrigation, tree service.
I don't have a percentage answer on this. I'd love to hear your answer on this. Like, when I think of low CapEx, I'm usually thinking like white collar services businesses and things like IT MSPs and accounting firms and things like that you can scale with humans and technology, and not with heavy equipment.
Right.
And so I just think it's like a spectrum, but I don't have like exact rules of thumb. I think it varies industry to industry, and you just have to get comfortable with what your industry's CapEx needs are. But there's definitely a spectrum where like, the next step up from that would be one you can scale with just trucks and people. And then the next step up with that is like you need to have actual real estate, trucks, and people. And then one up from that would be like a manufacturing company where you got to have like real estate, trucks, people, and heavy machinery, you know, like, and stuff like that. And so you have a better answer in terms of like the numbers on that?
That question made me stop and think. I don't have a percentage in mind, but the filter in my mind was heavy equipment, right? Like, I think landscaping, irrigation, HVAC are kind of right on that line of like not heavy CapEx, but there's definitely capital expenditures needed to grow, but not the heavy CapEx that you'd see with like, you know, oil field services or like heavy trench digging type of thing. Yeah.
There's a massive difference between even just vehicles that require a CDL versus not, you know, like that's a huge difference in CapEx.
Yeah. Will, if you're listening to this, you're being too conservative, buddy, and grow faster. Welcome. All right. Last couple questions. Clint, this is a good one. If you had to choose one type of company to acquire for yourself, personally, what industry, company, and what parameters would you look for? You have up to $3 million purchase price.
I'm putting one other caveat on this because it's too easy if I pick what I already do. Right. So I'd love to hear your answer on this, and I'll try for mine too. But let's just also say we can't pick our current industry.
Sure.
You know, if we're going to start over, we've got some cash, we can't do what we're already doing, and we want to buy. What would we buy? I think that's a loaded question because I think people are always looking for like, what industry should I buy? What type of business should I buy? I get that question constantly, and people are looking for like some magic formula, like what's the type of business I should be looking for right now, Clint? I really don't like answering that question because I've just seen people, and if you just listen to our show, you'll see dozens and dozens of people winning across every different industry possible, and you can win in any kind of industry, any type of business. I think you got to match to your personality and your strengths. And so if I had to start all over, I had no business, I couldn't go into M&A or business brokerage, and I just was going to go buy a business, what would I buy? I would look back to what am I good at? And what I'm good at is consultative sales. And that's why I'm good in the M&A world. And so I would look for a high ticket sale that takes a consultative approach. And I would have a preference to sticky recurring revenue as well. And so that might lead me back to aviation insurance, you know, or something like that. Cause like that's a recurring revenue consultative sale. I have an aviation background. Like, I already killed it as an employee in that space. I could kill it buying like an independent insurance agency that sells aviation insurance. I've already sold millions and millions of dollars of it as a salesman. And now I've got business ownership experience. So I'd look for an independent agency, and I would make it a target of the big dogs, because there's a lot of consolidation in that space, and there's only a handful of big players, and there's a bunch of mom and pops. So I'd find a mom and pop I could buy for a few million, and then I would just do what I know how to do and then build a sales team. And the fulfillment is nothing on that because you just write the policies and the carriers do the fulfillment. And so I would just have an agency. I also, you know, similarly to that, I could, you know, anything that's a white collar consultative sale, like selling IT services or selling accounting services, or I speak the language of business owners well. So a B2B sale that's consultative in nature, that's recurring revenue in nature, that scales infinitely with low CapEx would be where I would hunt if it were me starting all over again. How would you answer that question, Patrick?
I think for me, if I could get my hands on it, it'd be like a vertical SaaS business. Like, our kids go to a daycare and they use Brightwheel app. And my wife loves just like how you can communicate with the teachers and like getting pictures of our kids. And I'm like, that app is so sticky. Or if there's like, you know, some like niche software for tree services businesses, or like, you know, something like that. I don't know if I could get my hands on it because software is so expensive, and buying that small and probably a non-technical guy where it could be dangerous if I don't know how to patch the code. So I would say like a vertical SaaS that is really sticky like that. Or if I can't get that, I'd probably say property management. It's a good blend of kind of blue collar, white collar. It's not going anywhere. Recurring revenue, and you're kind of at the center of deals in real estate. So you could have some other ventures that you could do. So those would be my two. I'd look for a SaaS or property management.
Cool.
Yeah. Last question here we've got from a listener. What's a red flag that makes you walk out from a deal? Every time I see blank, I'm out.
Man, that's a good one. Well, I don't know that I have like a one, but I could throw out a few. We walk away from more deals than we represent as a brokerage. Our most common reasons are they're not making money. So many people come wanting to sell, but they're acting like this is such a great deal for the buyer, but you can tell they're suffering. And there's a certain dishonesty there. If it's like, yeah, I had a few unfortunate things happen. That's the only reason I didn't make money, but whoever buys this thing is going to make so much money.
Yep.
Like that. I have that conversation a lot, and I usually have some variation of the answer. Well, why don't you go prove that for a year or two and then come back, and then it'll be much easier to sell.
Right.
But I don't do a lot of distressed stuff. I get it. Sometimes people have to sell, but but that's the biggest thing is like honesty. If, I want to look at the P&L and the tax return, and if they don't match at all and they can't explain why, and it's because they're playing some really shady accounting gimmicks or hiding money from the tax man, like if they're willing to lie to the IRS, how are they going to be truthful with me? How are they going to be truthful with the buyer when like the IRS has the ability to really, put you in jail or like punitively punish you with the full weight of the US government. And you don't respect that. You don't fear that. Like you certainly aren't going to fear me or, and so like, that's a huge red flag is like tax. Like I love getting every fair deduction within the rules of the law you can, but it's when you color outside the lines on that's a big red flag for me. And then just a subtle one is when people like say too much how honest they are or how easy they're going to be to work with, or like when you get somebody that's trying to negotiate your fee down, for example, and they're like, well, I'm going to be the easiest person you've ever had to work with. And so I don't think you should charge me the same because like blah, blah, blah. This is why I'm going to be so easy to work with. Like 9 times out of 10, that's going to be the hardest person ever to work with. And so like if someone's really honest, they don't go around saying, I'm really honest.
Yep.
Like they don't have to say it. They just know, like, you just know they are, they know they are. And so it's like, that's a big red flag for me. If you're over talking about how honest you are, you're over talking about how easy you're going to be to work with. I'm usually like super sketched out by that.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are good ones. I'm, in a kind of different boat. I'm looking at accounting acquisitions. I look at a lot still these days, but pass on a lot. But the one that I walk away from right now is like, if it's tax only, if it's pure tax, it's just not worth going after. And then the other is like on the people side, like if I get on a Zoom call and I just don't get a good vibe from a person early, I'm out. So, those are my two big ones. So, awesome. Those are some good listener questions. So we'll be sure to do that again and have more. If you got to this point in the episode, thank you for being a listener. Thank you for supporting the show. If you can, please write a review for us on Apple Podcasts. That would be the best way to say thank you. Or, send us a nice note that we can tell our moms that our podcast is a big hit. So thank you for being here. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. We'll see you.
Thanks, everybody.